Good evening. This is the work session for Northfield City Council, November 23rd of 2021. This meeting was properly advertised in accordance with Public Law 1975, Chapter 231 in the Press of Atlantic City on January 9th of this year. Hopefully this is the last time I'll ever read this. As you may know, in late May, Governor Murphy issued Executive Order 242 related to COVID-19 and which eased restrictions on face coverings in indoor public spaces under certain conditions. The order permits employers to impose stricter requirements regarding face coverings in indoor settings, which in the best interests of our employees and visitors, the City of Northfield opted to do in May and continues to do today. Based on CDC guidelines, the City of Northfield continues to require face coverings and social distancing in our indoor public spaces, and visitors are made aware of this decision with signs at the entrances to the building. Due to the continued social distancing requirements, there are limited seats for in-person attendance by members of the public this evening. This meeting is also being presented simultaneously as a remote public meeting live streamed using Zoom conferencing service and in accordance with the governor's executive orders and the Open Public Meetings Act. Zoom meeting participants can dial in by telephone and listen to the proceedings, or they can access the meeting using a web browser and be able to view and listen. Instructions on how members of the public could reserve one of the limited seats, as well as how they can access Zoom, have been made available on the municipal website and were published in the Press of Atlantic City. The full text of the public meeting notice has been posted at the entrance to the municipal building and includes Zoom instructions, information on where to find the meeting agenda and relevant documents, as well as instructions on how members of the public could submit comments in advance of tonight's meeting. For those participating via Zoom, all participants will be muted upon entry to the meeting. Web browser participants will not be able to share their screens or see the camera view of anyone other than the host, which is the City of Northfield. Zoom participants wishing to exercise their right to participate during the public comment portion of the meeting should wait until the specific announcement is made to open the public comment period. At this time, one by one, any telephone users will be asked to identify themselves and will be unmuted to permit commentary. For web browser participants, comments or questions may be submitted via the chat function, but will not be acknowledged outside of the designated public comment portion of the meeting. Chat users must also identify themselves using his or her name and address for the record in order to be heard. Any written comments submitted in advance will be read aloud and addressed during the public comment portion of tonight's meeting. May I have a flag salute led by Mayor Chow, please?
Please rise. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Excuse me, can everyone just, I ask for a moment of silence to remain standing. A young man, he was actually one of the, he was the first baby in Northfield in 1993. He passed away earlier this month. His name's Kyle Buckberg. Just offer a moment of silence. Thank you very much.
Roll call, Mr. Deweese?
Here.
Mrs. Madden? Here. Mr. Notaro?
Here.
Mr. Perry?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Utz?
Here.
Mr. Policina?
Here.
And Mr. Chow?
Here.
Mr. President?
Thank you. Before we begin tonight, I'd like to address the governor's executive order, the 242 mask mandate. And we've been going on with this for quite a while. If we are vaccinated, anyone vaccinated, we ask for your honesty. You may remove your masks. Actually, this is the mayor's
Where'd he go?
call.
He left.
He has deferred. At the last meeting,
There
he deferred it to council to discuss this. In reviewing it, many public places are permitted not to wear the masks, and as long as we still, I believe we would still continue to practice social distancing, so unfortunately we won't be able to come to a full meeting room, but very rarely have we gone over the social distancing numbers. Mayor, is that okay if would you prefer the council to vote on this, or would you like to?
I would like council's input on this,
Okay.
yes.
Anyone from council have any other input?
I fully support taking the mask off.
Take the mask off. Louise, yes. Councilwoman Madden.
As much as I hate the masks, cases, especially in Atlantic County, are on the rise. I now all put up a sign to wear masks. People don't listen to them do it, but
Right.
they changed their sign from optional to, requesting people wear masks, so, it's not over yet.
Again,
We
as,
still have to
yeah,
be cautious.
we still have to be cautious, and that's why we'll still socially distance. And again, if you're not vaccinated, we ask anybody from the public or our employees here as well, during the day, anyone coming in the building, please wear a mask if you're not vaccinated for the benefit of those around you.
So is it our position that it's not required, but it's suggested?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, suggested. And is there any other objections? Councilwoman Madden? No? Then, if you wish, you may take off your mask.
Council President, could we have a mask burning?
Well, we can ask the fire department. Thank you all. Move on to committee reports. Councilman Perry, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. We had a meeting with the Alliance, with Shannon Campbell, our new coordinator. It was a good meeting. A lot was discussed, and it seems like this year we're at a lot less money because of the fines. There's a lot less fines being collected. 3 towns opted out in Atlantic County. We're probably going to be around $4,000 this year, which is not a lot, but we're going to try and make the best of it. Sergeant Guy DeMarco had some interesting plans to put into force, and a nice group, and I wish Shannon well in the future with it. That's all I have right now, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Utz.
Nothing to report.
Councilman Notaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. Fan had their last home game last weekend, and it was a very successful year. A lot of snacks sold at the snack bar. They made a lot of money out there. I'm proud to say that all the teams, Pee Wee through varsity, are going on to the championship. So we wish them all the well. And also Inspira for their hard work at every game, keeping the kids safe. Thank you to them, too. That's it.
Thank you. Councilman DeWeese.
The only thing I have, just a couple of things, just to follow up. Irrigation is now turned off on all properties, as well as the sports buildings, the football building and the baseball building are now winterized for the season. They're closed. Football is done for the year. And the last thing I have is the Casto House is scheduled to be painted. We have a contractor, it's Personal Touch Painting Contracting, is going to do the painting, and there's some minor exterior repairs that they'll be doing at a tune of $4,500.
Thank you.
All right, that's it. That's all I have.
When is that? What time of
I'm
year is
not sure of the schedule, but I do have
Depending on
a
when.
copy of the contract, so. I can't imagine doing it till probably the spring.
Yeah, okay. Councilman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. President. I attended the school board meeting last evening, and in another sign that we're kind of getting back to it, they do student awards every month, and they actually had students there in person to receive their awards. So it was nice to kind of see a little bit of the celebration of student achievements, recommended by the teachers there, but they were actually in attendance. It wasn't all virtual, so it was nice to see a little bit more of the heading back towards normalcy, I guess we'll say. So that was nice to see, but nothing other to report there. The only other comment I have is, and I'm not sure if the mayor will touch on this, but we received notification, and you probably saw it in the newspaper, that in terms of the county court, the shared county court, they have come to an agreement with the sheriff's department to provide security. It's kind of the last piece of the puzzle, and they are moving forward. They've made hires and recommendations, and they continue to implement that to be ready for January. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Great. Thank you. Councilwoman Madden.
I have nothing to report.
And, thank you. And I have nothing to report either. I did not attend the Municipal Alliance meeting, however, thank you, Councilman Perry, for attending and for your report.
Thank you.
And thank you, Shannon, for accepting that position. We'll move on to the work session. The Zion Road Pump Station, has there been any response?
Yes, the public notices were mailed out yesterday was the 22nd, also published in the paper. Hearing scheduled for December 2nd. Ronnie and I will appear before the board then and hopefully get an approval.
Thank you. Any questions, Amy? No? How, the Northfield drainage, Northfield Route 9 drainage?
Yes, after we had the conversation with the state regarding the update of the Route 9, I received an email from Ms. Lebzar, and she said, where do you stand? I said, I've been sending emails to this gentleman, never heard from him. I haven't heard from her back. So it's the same thing over again.
Okay.
I'll keep sending her like.
State's
emails
very responsive.
every week. I'll send emails, and then we'll be
Thank you. We have no update on the lease agreement. Sump pumps, any ordinance still in progress?
I'll try and get it by the next meeting.
Thank you. Stormwater share facilities? There, nothing from the county? Any update to the fire truck?
No update right now. They're just, they're still working on specs, and they'll be, putting together a bid package
Okay.
as soon as they can.
And the Habitat MUA is still being worked on, so there's no update to the auction property.
And I'll have my recommendation as council for the next meeting.
Thank you. Work session, new business. The LEAP grant, we have we're supporting the acquisition of the county's TMAs on the regular agenda.
Do you want to see if Tim wants to come up?
Mr. Kreischer, did you want to come up to speak to that at all, or?
If you'd like me to, explain it to you,
Please.
I'd be glad to.
Just make sure he says his name and address in the record.
Good evening, my name is Tim Kreischer, I'm the Shared Service Coordinator for Atlantic County. I also have experience sitting in your chairs, as I was city commissioner in Ventnor for 4 years and mayor for 12. Had some experience with shared service. The county is in the process, we are going to purchase 3 what's called truck-mounted attenuators. Anybody know what that is?
No, sir.
Good, we're hitting 100% because nobody else has that.
I looked it up, Tim.
I'm sorry?
I looked it up.
Please bear with me. They is the device, you've seen them, I'm sure. That's a device that goes on the back of the highway, work vehicle that's working on road construction that absorbs the impact of a rear end
Okay.
collision. You've seen them with the, another word for it, the crash truck. Well, the county's gonna purchase 3 of them and make them available to municipalities at no cost. I just have to pick it up in the county yard in Northfield, which is very close to you. We are gonna apply for a LEAP grant, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, Local Efficiency Achievement Program, which is a state program to incentivize municipalities to share services, and we will be able to get 75%, if we get the grant, 75% of the cost of the 3 trucks. Also, part of the purchase is not only 3 trucks, but 3 arrow boards that will go with the attenuator. And it protects the life of the work crew, your vehicle, and believe it or not, it also protects the life of the dumb idiot that runs up and crashes into the back. It may not do much for their vehicle, but it probably will save their life. So we're calling on municipalities to see if you would want to participate, and if so, do a resolution in support of the LEAP grant so that we can attach that with the application and hopefully be funded the money.
Tom?
Thank you. You have a question?
Yeah.
Yes, Councilman Deweese?
Yes, Barbara.
Oh, Barbara. Councilman Madden?
Is there any cost to
Councilwoman?
Northfield for this?
I'm sorry, any
Is there
cost?
a cost to Northfield for?
No, there'll be no cost to the municipality,
Just available to
just for the
municipalities?
time and gas to drive down Route 9 to the Public Works to pick it up and return it.
So this, there, in other words, if there's road work, I guess it'll be on one side of the road, this truck would be at the beginning of the road work and
Yes,
protect?
it can actually attach to the vehicle that you, if you're doing pothole repair,
Okay.
grass cutting on the side.
Let's see if it's freestanding.
Again, it goes,
Sounds like a good
along
safety device.
behind the work vehicle to protect everybody.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Councilman Deweese?
I have a question. This apparatus, is it going to be freestanding or is it already mounted onto a truck?
No, it's freestanding, it's a truck mounted, which means that it can attach to any truck.
Okay.
So they'll be freestanding, you'll send your work vehicle to the county yard, attach it. to the
Do we
back.
have to, I'm sorry, do we have to do anything to our trucks to accommodate rigging this thing to the back of the
Not
truck?
that I'm aware of, no.
Okay. Is it like a trailer type thing or is it,
Uh,
is it an arm that comes down and falls back from the back of the
It
truck
falls
probably? Okay.
I believe.
I am familiar
At
with
least
it.
one
so-
side.
Awesome, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Mr.
Also
Kreischer.
see on the agenda, you have any other suggestions for LEAP applications?
Yes.
You know, if you have any questions or about the LEAP program, I'll be able to answer them as well.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for coaching me in Pee Wee football.
Veteran Pirates,
Yes, sir.
JV's won the championship in the new league, unfortunately. They played in the Atlantic County Football League. And just give a sidebar, if you're interested, we're having a 65th year celebration for the Atlantic County Junior Football League in
Wow.
March at Bally's.
And-
Hopefully I played you.
Thanks for coming out tonight.
And Mr. Kreischer actually married my ex-husband and I, unfortunately. Yeah, but it's all good.
One of the few failures that I had.
It didn't take. Moving on, does anyone from council have any other items, any other suggestions for other LEAP projects that we could pursue? Okay. The next item is our reorganization date is going to be January 4th. It's a first Tuesday after the new year.
And just as a reminder, that's the one meeting of the year where there's no workshop, so it does begin at 7. Yes.
Thank you. If everyone can review, refer to your agendas. Meeting minutes, Councilman Perry, Councilman Notaro. Resolutions, Councilman Smith, Councilman DeWeese. Ordinance, Councilman Utz, Councilwoman Madden. Payment of bills, Councilman Notaro, Councilman DeWeese. And meeting notices, Councilwoman Madden. At this time, we'll open the public session. Anyone from the public wishing to speak on any subject, please state your name and address for the record, and we ask you observe a 5-minute limit per speaker.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name's Elizabeth Loftus, 102 Oxford Circle, Northfield. I sent in an email to the mayor and the council recently, and I'd like to read that email out loud for the rest of the constituents. First of all, I'd like to thank Councilman Terry for his many years of service in Northfield. Although I haven't always agreed with you, I did vote across party lines for you in previous elections. Councilwoman Madden, thank you for your service to the city also. With that being said, I'd like to speak about cannabis sales in the city and the quote hoopla regarding it. I'm disappointed and perplexed in the direction that the majority of council has now chosen regarding this. Some council members have gone back and forth on this for months, having reservations or concerns. One Republican has been opposed, and 3 Democrats favor of the sale of cannabis in the city. The voters had spoken just a week before and sent a clear message that they were not happy with the direction of two of its council members. I'd like to read a quote from the press on November 12th of this year. People are afraid of it and anxious about this coming to Northfield. Once the initial hoopla is over, it will be just another retail store. The definition of hoopla is the excitement surrounding an event or situation, especially when considered to be unnecessary fuss. The hoopla or unnecessary fuss is that residents don't want it sold in the city. Some of us don't. The condescending term of hoopla was not and is not appreciated. The voters have sent a clear message: listen to the voters, help us set a good example for our kids, keep our streets safer, offer alternatives to recreational drug use, and lessen the burden our law enforcement officers already have, including enforcing alcohol laws. Any reservation, hesitancy, doubt, or the overall benefit of this in our city should be a vote opposing it. Once committed to this, the town will be past redemption. In other words, from what I understand, in 5 years, anybody that's grandfathered in could continue this business. Keep Northfield's reputation and integrity beyond reproach by banning cannabis sales in our city. Thank you for considering.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak?
Good evening. Is this on? My name is Kim City. I live at 243 West Mill Road. I live across the street from the American Legion. And since my husband and I moved into the house in 2018, we've experienced loud music coming from the American Legion almost every weekend. We have called ourselves, called the police, a handful of times to complain. Each time the police come out, we are told that there's really nothing that can be done, that there's no noise ordinance. And so I'm here to find out if there's anything that we can do about that. I have spoken with Mark, the gentleman who rents the property out. He seemed receptive to some of my ideas. My number one idea is, I realize that the partygoers, whoever is renting the party, has to leave a deposit, and my suggestion is that they don't receive that deposit back if the police need to be called. And at this moment, I can't think of my other suggestion. I don't think it should get to this point, but if it doesn't stop, I think that the American Legion should possibly be fined as well. So, thank you.
Thank you. Is there, yes, Mr. Doherty.
Good evening, everyone. Mark Doherty, 405 Chestnut Avenue, but I'm speaking tonight as the commander of the American Legion Post. I appreciate the people that come out and voice their opinion tonight. Thank you very much. The Post was chartered on the 8th of December, 1941, so we've been a Northfield resident and a staple for 80 years now. The membership has gone full circle from well over 100 members to I currently have 38. I've lost 5 who passed away this year alone. I'm down to 2 active members, myself and one other. By an active member, I mean somebody that can take out the trash, that can do minor repairs, do whatever with the building. And everybody else are pretty much Korean War, Second World War veterans, they're 80s and 90s, and although they're members, they really aren't able to participate very well. Over the years, we've had a number of different ways of trying to raise funds. We used to have a bingo game in there for years before St. Bernadette's took it over, but it's very labor intensive to put on something like that. So rentals has become, over time, our way of providing funding to keep, to do the functions that we do in the community. On the 20th of June, 2018, I got an email from Chief Newman reporting that there had been a noise complaint that previous weekend that they had to respond to. He was very surprised when he went into the CAD records and found that actually there had been 11 times in the previous year that the police had been called in response to noise complaints. That was the first that I had heard, as a commander, it's the first that I had heard that there was an issue with noise in the neighborhood from the things that we were having as far as rentals there. So, over the course of the following week, the chief and I went back and forth. I sent him a copy of our rental agreement. He had some suggestions. We went back and discussed it, and we made some changes. The rental agreement, which, is there anybody else here to speak about that tonight?
No, not the rental agreement, but I live next door.
Okay, I was just gonna say, anybody else who's here to speak, I'll give you a copy of that as well. I've provided copies to all of the council reps. I've highlighted in red those changes that were made, and except for two
Mark.
items which I'll bring to you
Mark,
again,
there was one more back there.
those were the changes. Those were the changes that we made in 2018. And then following that, we did not see any more noise complaints, not that I'm aware of. Then came COVID, and we went from January of 2020 until the end of March 2021 with no rentals. No rentals means no income. During that same period, we had to make a number of improvements to the building, including $12,000 repair to the roof, and it dwindled our savings down from $20,000 in 2019 to $101 in June of this year. So when the rentals came back, we were very happy to see that. And until this 2 weeks ago, we hadn't really had any complaints about it until, as I said, 2 weeks ago. So, again, I get a call from the chief, and he said, we've had more noise complaints, we've responded, and we need to take a look at this issue again. So, we have made a couple more changes on the contract, and the two being, one, we're moving the time period back. Instead of you have to be finished by 11 and out by midnight, now you have to be finished by 10 and out by 11. And also, we have increased the damage deposit from $150 to $300. Initially, we had done that earlier in the year because people were looking at $150, that's not a lot of money. Let's just leave it and let them clean it up, and they'd walk out. And you'd come in the next morning to an absolute, I won't describe it, an absolute, let's leave it at that. And $150 just didn't seem like a sufficient deterrent, so we upped it to $300. A very good suggestion, if they have the police respond and tell them they have to turn that music down, they should lose their damage deposit. So that's the other change we've made. That was just made through this past week. So changing the times and the change in the amount. The problem is, we can put whatever we want to in the contract. How do you enforce it? How do you make someone stop at 10 o'clock? And you can call the police and say, hey, it's a noise issue, I want you to do something about it, but what realistically can the police do about it? They can tell them to turn it down, and most people would respond to that, but it's not like the police can force them to do anything. And as the person who is renting out the building or in charge of renting out the building, I could always go over and just shut the power off. That would definitely end their party. But imagine 50 or 75 drunks and facing me, I'm 67, okay, that probably is not a safe approach either. So unfortunately, we're doing whatever we can to try and address the issue, and if this doesn't work, then we'll have to go some other route. I don't know what else to say. We've considered scaling back on the number. We've agreed that we're no longer gonna be renting on holidays, other than, I have one coming up on Thursday, a Thanksgiving dinner that's being held there. They're doing a baby shower on Friday, and had so many people coming in from out of town, they couldn't accommodate feeding them on Thursday for Thanksgiving, so they ended up renting Thursday and Friday, and they're gonna do a Thanksgiving dinner there. But that'll be the last holiday that's rented out. And I've already turned down 3 requests for rentals on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. And we're just not gonna rent that anymore. So I am open to suggestions, and certainly we've made changes as appropriate, and we will continue to make changes until we can bring this issue under control. I would like to say that this year, so far, we've had 104 events in 2021 at that building. And 2 noise complaints. 43 rentals, and they're across the board, birthday parties, baby showers, a couple weddings, all kinds of stuff. We let a lot of civic organizations use the building for free. The Mothers League meets there, the Northfield Democratic Club meets there, the Republican Club used to meet there, they have a key, they can use it when they want. We have also had 22 Red Cross blood drives there this year, and since the Red Cross lost their lease on their building over in Pleasantville on Franklin Avenue, they're scrounging for any place to host an event. So they're using our building 3 times a month, starting in January. So we hope over time that the building will be more than just an American Legion post, it'll be more like a community center that people feel as though they can use. So that's kind of where we are, and I'm sure some other people want to get up and voice their concerns and have their suggestions. I would just encourage you, please, let's continue communicating, and if what we've done so far doesn't work, then we'll just have to do something else until we find something that does. And the people that rented on the 13th of this month, I kept their $300 damage deposit. Any questions for me?
Did you get much resistance from your proposed, or your I guess, proposed tenants as to the increase in the security deposit?
No, because in theory, they're getting it back. This is the first time we've withheld it for a noise complaint. We've withheld it for not cleaning up, but this is the first time for a noise complaint. That happens usually 2, maybe 3 times a year, we'll withhold that.
I mean, it seems to me if users are leaving the property as you described it in, deplorable condition, I don't know how number one, I don't know how you pay anybody to clean it up for $300. But you may consider raising that a little more. I don't know what you get for a rental. I don't know that you can make it cost prohibitive. But maybe you build something into your agreement that says for every quarter hour they exceed the 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock threshold, they get dinged, a portion of that money.
Another issue is in order
Not gonna
to,
fix the noise,
how do
but
we
maybe-
recoup that from them? You can take them to small claims court, that's a complete waste.
No, I'm saying
of
is
time.
get it up front as
Yeah.
part of their security, get $1,000 and say for every quarter hour, I'm just throwing a
Yeah,
number out.
I know.
You know,
Well,
For every quarter
there
hour
was a
you
lot of
exceed,
discussion
you
about
can-
raising it to 300. We charge 400 for a rental, and it's
Is that
the
what it
cheapest
is?
place in town. We get a lot of business. But, we've looked at that, that's got its fair share of wear and tear on the building too. The building's 100 years old. So we've looked at maybe putting a cap on the number of rentals, not from a noise perspective, but from just a wear and tear on the building perspective, We need to make money, we need to replenish, our savings, and we need to continue doing things in the community, but we don't need a ton of money, there's a cutoff where we're making enough that we don't need to rent it out any more than we already are.
It seems like it's a very cheap place to rent
Yeah.
in comparison to a lot of other properties. How much they charge.
We've looked at that too. Other properties are very reluctant to tell you what they charge, to be honest with you. So I don't have a good handle on what other people are charging. But we have looked at having fewer events and charging more for each event so that we don't have to rent it out as often. But that doesn't help the noise. you know, be easier on the neighborhood as far as the number of times people are there, but it doesn't address the noise.
That's not all noise either, because there's fist fights out.
I'm sorry, we'll have to, everybody will have to just come up to,
Okay.
it's gonna get into,
Again,
we're running,
if I don't
yeah.
know about
I
it,
appreciate you coming out, Mr. Doherty, and thank you for your responsiveness.
Chief Newman has been outstanding at communicating and letting us know what's going on. And perhaps that's the conduit. It's not their job, but I mean, if there's fistfights in front of the building, call 911. You know, I'm not gonna get in the middle of it, to be honest with you. I'm just not. I'll say it right here. Sorry, above my pay grade, no.
And to that point, you know, what Chief Newman has relayed to Mark is 100% correct. There is no noise ordinance. We beat that to death several years ago. The enforcement of a noise ordinance is nearly impossible unless you have a noise meter, for lack of a better word. We looked at that. It's very difficult and they're very expensive to have. And you literally have to be on site at the time the noise was exceeding the, you know, set decibel level, which is very difficult. So that's number one. To your point, ma'am, if there is a fist fight, unlike a noise complaint, which is unenforceable and you know, not something that we can necessarily, you know, write a summons for, a fist fight is, and Chief Newman will tell you that, you know, that's a disorderly person's offense. And if you see that, by all means, call the police. If the police won't issue a summons for that, you can issue a citizen's complaint for that. The problem is you have to know who it is to issue it to. So that's, you know, the fist fighting is a completely separate issue from the noise, and that's something that is quote-unquote actionable. So if you find that, like Mark said, call 911.
Tom?
We have considered saying no DJs. That doesn't necessarily remove all the noise either, so they can just bring a stereo set up and hook it up and right back where you were. We considered no music at all. That's kind of hard, you know, I mean, you're gonna have a lot of people that are gonna go elsewhere. We already have a lot of people that go elsewhere. At least 2 or 3 times a month, I lose a rental because of the time restriction. You know, they wanna stay there, they wanna start later and they wanna stay later, and I'm saying, sorry, but you're in a residential neighborhood, you have to go someplace else. And I have a list of places that they can go, and I refer them there. You can go to Farmington Fire Hall, it's out in the middle of nowhere, it's a great place, you know, by all means, go out there and bring the house down.
Excuse
And
me,
this-
Councilman Deweese has a
This is a
question.
legal question, but minus the noise, I know we don't have a noise ordinance per se. What about a nuisance complaint? Is there such a thing?
There are statutes that govern nuisance and general, I won't say what we call them in Absecon. You know, yes, there are ordinances and there are state statutes which prohibit disorderly conduct. So to the extent that the police department can write those, then they can write them. I think it's harder for a citizen to file that complaint unless the citizen has an altercation with the actual person. So are they available? Yeah.
The thing that makes
All
the
right.
house vibrate. Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming out tonight and for your responsiveness. Yeah, we're going way over on this, and I want to give other people an opportunity to speak. Thank you, Mark. But letting you go longer probably answered a lot of questions, though. Yes.
Justin Vinci, neighbors of Kim and Tom. We've lived there
Address.
for about.
What is
I'm
your-
sorry, I'm at 247 West Mill Road.
Thank you.
We've lived there about 4 years, and it has been a problem. Everything they say is true. It is an ongoing situation that we would hope needs to be addressed. We don't want the American Legion to go away. You know, we support everything that they stand for. I think they do a good job in the community. I just feel like something has to be done. I feel like the people that come and rent out their space aren't maybe from around here, and they don't care about the neighborhood. They don't care about the situation that we live through.
Mhm.
And I just feel like maybe, you know, something could be done in that regard. A lot of the things that he says that he changed here, I think it's a good step. It's a good idea. 10 o'clock, I think that is, you know, that's a enough for a party. I don't know what time they usually start, but I think 10 o'clock at night is, especially with schools going on, we have children. A lot of the families that wanted to come here because of COVID couldn't because of the seating restrictions. So there are other families around
Yeah.
this neighborhood that do feel the same way. But other than that, I mean, there are safety concerns, especially with the traffic. There has been 2 accidents in front of the Legion, 2 in front of their house, both within 12 hours of each other. One leaving a party the night, probably around 11:30 at night, maybe 12 o'clock at night, and then a head-on collision that the truck drove through their front door. I don't know what to say. I know they both have, the only link is across the street. I don't want anything bad to happen to the building, like I said. I just feel like, I don't know. I don't know what else to say about it. I feel like there are some concerns that could be bad, whether it's lighting or, I do know that late at night, they let the children just run out in the middle of the street, pretty much. There's just a lot of, I don't know if it's the people that are renting are probably the problem. I feel like something should be addressed.
And hopefully what they've, the
I don't
steps,
want anything bad.
no, hopefully
I
the
think
steps
they
they're
should still
taking,
rent, you know,
ho- hopefully the steps they're taking will calm this, it will straighten this out. But as Mr. Doherty said,
I just wanted to.
he's going to continue to work on it with all of you, and as will we.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Hey, my name's Tom Pacitti, I live 243 West Mill Road. So, part of the problem is that the traffic, you know, could cause somebody to get really hurt. You know, like Jason said, or Justin, you know, we had 2 cars end up on our front property. One took out our front porch in a matter of 24 hours. And it was due to the handicap parking that's across the street. It's so close to the white line that divides the street from the sidewalk. And, you know, a lot of handicapped people do get out in that section of the road. And I gotta tell you, you know, people are driving by there doing 40 miles an hour, easy. You know, and, you know, in the accident that took out our front porch, guy was sitting parked there. I saw him back up into that spot, you know, and I told him, I said, you know, you probably should not park that close to that white line. He said, oh, it's okay. And we left, and our neighbors called us and told us, guy hit him, took that car out, wiped it out, and took our front porch out at the same time. So, you know, if there's a way you could maybe take the sidewalk, it's in front of the library, maybe just move the handicap spot a little bit further over, and possibly put, you know, no U-turn signs. The one accident, the lady tried to make a U-turn because at the end of the night, they want to load up all their stuff. And, you know, when they unload their stuff, there's a car that pulls up on the property of the American Legion. Half of the cars on the street, half of the cars on the sidewalk. So, you know, this causes, you know, a lot of possible accidents too. The one lady tried to make a U-turn, didn't look to see if there was a car coming, that was late at night, and the car smashed right into her. You know, maybe no U-turn signs. I know there's yield to pedestrian signs. Maybe if you had some blinking lights in that specific area, when there is a party, just have a yield sign that has blinking lights to notify people that there are, you know, there's kids that are running back and forth. I mean, just random, you know, so, you know, a lot of the parents aren't there, and you can watch the kids out there just running around out front. You know, I mean, the last thing we want to see see is somebody get really
Yeah.
hurt or killed. And, you know, from what I've seen, you know, it gets crazy. People are just running around in the streets like nothing. And that late at night, when there's not a lot of traffic, a lot of the people who drive down that area are, they're free to go whatever speed they want. You know, and, you know, I would have to guess that they were doing probably anywhere, they're not doing 30 miles an hour, and they're probably doing well over 40 miles an hour. And so, that's one of our biggest concerns. You know, I appreciate the fact that you address, you know, backing up the times of the parties. That, I think, will make a big difference. You know, we're used to listening to the loud music, but once it goes over a certain time, you know, that gets a little ridiculous.
Yep.
I feel bad for a lot of the kids, you know, parents in that specific area who have young kids that have to get up. A lot of these parties are during the week, you know, and they have to get up in the morning. So, they're my concerns. I think we're going to see those things to address them in any way possible.
Thank you. Yeah.
Council President, may I just ask a question to Mark? Usually, what's the average number of hours that the rental is occurring?
We don't put a time restriction on it other than the time that they have to stop.
All right.
They can come in as early as they want to start doing the setup, and their party is when their party is, but it has to stop
Okay.
at the time. We used to be 11 o'clock and then cleaned up and out by midnight, now we're backing it up an hour.
One suggestion, and I hear about the noise complaint and the enforcement, and it's unfortunate that, you know, when you call the police, it could be because they're responding to something else in the city, and also the safety that you pointed out. And, you know, Mark, I'm just saying this out loud, you know, food for thought. I've been to some events where they actually pay as part of the rental agreement or event to have a police officer there and for X amount of money. I know some people don't like that because it's an extra cost, but having a police officer or one of our Class 2 officers there, their salaries, with all due respect to our Class 2 officers, is not like as exorbitant as a police officer. But when I was at Mainland Regional High School and we had prom, it was required when we went to certain places that we had to have a police officer and we had to pay a certain amount. So that might be one suggestion.
That sounds good.
Thank you,
know,
Mayor.
I mean, one of the problems is that the parking for the American Legion is across the street, you know, and anybody who goes there has gotta go, so it gets a little hectic. That's all I have.
Yeah.
Council President.
Thank you.
And Mark, that might be something where, you know, I would think that you wouldn't need an officer if that's a plan you want to go. If you, let's just say you had, for example, I'll just throw out a number, 25 people, but let's say it's an event that's going to have over 100 people, you might want to require a police officer or a Class 2 officer as part of the fees.
Councilman Luis?
Just want to remind you that Mill Road is a county road, so all those traffic concerns have to be addressed through the county. But I don't think it's unreasonable for us to suggest that we get a pedestrian crossing in front of the library. Right, well, there's a crosswalk there now. It's a push-button signalized flasher that when people want to cross, hit the button and you can cross.
Yeah, like the,
That may, and the
like Tony.
no U-turn signs, we have to petition the county for that. But I think there are reasonable suggestions.
One of the other things I noticed is that, you know, on the bike path, when you come close to the one at Central Avenue, it's notified, when a vehicle approaches that stop sign, it starts to flash. If there could be something similar to that, but in a yellow flash, that I think would be very helpful.
What we're suggesting is something similar to at Mill and Burton. They have a pedestrian crossing, flashing light there. It's button activated. When you want to cross, hit it and you go.
Right.
So it's not, it's solar activated, so. Anyway, a couple options.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? Is there anyone on Zoom?
I don't think so, but I do have a statement from someone who submitted a written comment.
Okay.
This is from Karen White, who resides at 232 Davis Avenue in Northfield. I respectfully offer the following comment on the issue of the legalization of the sale of marijuana in the city of Northfield. I had hoped to attend the meeting in person. However, when I checked the city website on Monday night, it indicated that no seats were available to appear in public due to COVID limitations. I oppose the legalization of the sale of marijuana in the city of Northfield. I have obtained 31 signatures on a change.org petition opposing the legalization of the sale of marijuana in the city. Most importantly, I am respectfully requesting that this important decision be postponed until January, when the 2 new city council members who were duly elected in the November election are sworn into office. I do not believe that the 2 lame duck members of the present council should be permitted to vote on such an important decision as this. The voters have spoken. The new council should vote on this issue. Thank you all for your time and consideration on this matter. It is appreciated. I don't see anyone in Zoom wishing to comment.
With that, we will close the public session. May I have a motion to adjourn the work session?
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Work session's adjourned. We'll start regular session in 2 minutes.
Other than changing the time and
Who motioned and seconded?
It was Mr. Deweese and Mr. Notaro was second.
Thank you.
Got one of those, like, the sandwich sign, the pedestrian sandwich. One is yellow one, I'll get one of them. Most likely. We're gonna hit it hard. I need a little back up. I need a little gavel.
Right? Yeah, give it a hard whack.
Excuse me.
See, like they're smacking a hammer here.
Excuse me.
Folks, we're going to start the second part
Is
of the
this
meeting.
thing on?
We thought you were.
American Legion, where you are?
See you guys. $400, you can throw a party and rent it out. Thank you all.
Good evening. This is the regular session, Northfield City Council, November 23rd of 2021. This meeting has been properly advertised according to Public Law 1975, Chapter 231, in the Press of Atlantic City on January 9th of this year. Based on CDC guidelines, the City of Northfield continues to require social distancing in our indoor public spaces, and visitors are made aware of this decision with signs at the entrances to the building. Due to these requirements, there are limited seats for in-person attendance by members of the public this evening. This meeting is also being presented simultaneously as a remote public meeting, live streamed using Zoom conferencing service and in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act. Zoom meeting participants can dial in by telephone and listen to the proceedings, or they can access the meeting using a web browser and be able to view and listen. Instructions on how members of the public could reserve one of the limited seats, as well as how they can access Zoom, have been made available on the municipal website and were published in the Press of Atlantic City. The full text of the public meeting notice has been posted at the entrances to the municipal building and includes Zoom instructions, information on where to find the meeting agenda and relevant documents, as well as instructions on how members of the public could submit comments in advance of tonight's meeting. For those participating via Zoom, all participants will be muted upon entry to the meeting. Web browser participants will not be able to share their screens or see the camera view of anyone other than the host, which is the city of Northfield. Zoom participants wishing to exercise their right to participate during the public comment portion of the meeting should wait until the specific announcement is made to open the public comment period. At this time, one by one, any telephone users will be asked to identify themselves and will be unmuted to permit commentary. For web browser participants, comments or questions may be submitted via the chat function, but will not be acknowledged outside of the designated public comment portion of the meeting. Chat users must also provide his or her name and address for the record in order to be heard. Any written comments submitted in advance would be read and allowed and addressed during the public comment portion of the meeting. May I have a flag salute led by Mayor Chow, please?
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered to make decisions for our community. May we use only our best skills and judgment, keeping ourselves impartial and neutral as we consider the merits and pitfalls of each matter that is placed before us, and always act in accordance in what is best for our community and our fellow citizens. Thank you. Please be seated.
Thank you. Roll call?
Here.
Mr. Deweese.
Here.
Mrs. Madden?
Here.
Mr. Notaro?
Here.
Mr. Perry?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Utz?
Here.
Mr. Palestina?
Here.
Mr. Chow?
Here.
Mr. President?
Approval of the minutes.
Make a motion to dispense with the reading of minutes of November 9, 2021. They've been posted, distributed to council, and filed in the municipal clerk's office.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Mayor's report.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, members of council and the public. First of all, I want to recognize and thank everyone who was able to attend our Veterans Day event. It was well attended, and I personally want to thank Councilman Perry and the American Legion Commander Mark Dougherty, who was there to initiate the program. Thank you again, Councilman Perry. You did an outstanding job in presentation that day. It was very, very nice, and I
Thank you,
got a
Mayor.
lot of comments that in positive there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman
Our
Perry.
code enforcement officer is now up and running. We had a meeting this week with the chief of police and with our code enforcement agent to ascertain if there were any problems or concerns. I brought forth a suggestion that was a case management software program that could be utilized by our code enforcement agent as far as documentation, tickets, and so forth. It is a cost. I know we have one program here in the city that has not been utilized, so I may come back depending upon if the code enforcement officer wishes to get something like this. It might cost us some money there, not a lot, but something to consider there. Okay. Also want to announce, if the public have not recognized or have seen on our Northfield Police website, along with our Pro Phoenix communication system, there is a module that allows for public input in terms of getting information within our police department. It is available, and if anyone is interested, they can simply contact the police department, and they can send out the website to register and so forth. But it's another mechanism that our police department has some ears listening to what public concerns and some other data information that's available. I want to also remind everyone that I am holding my annual Holiday House Decoration event, and if anyone is interested, they can certainly call our city clerk's office and enter their house. It's been a very successful program, and I do want to thank many of the commercial establishments who have donated prizes in the past, and I know they're going to continue to do that. I asked permission from Councilman Pinataro just to report on the fire department with regards to Santa Claus. Obviously, with the COVID, we probably, at this point, will not have where the children can sit on the lap of Santa Claus here at the firehouse. We're looking at different options, but there will still be a Santa Claus going around the city with the fire sirens and so forth. So that's still being maintained. My report on the courts, as Councilman Smith pointed out in the newspaper, we accomplished and negotiated one of the biggest hurdle and budgetary impact, and that is the security. Right now, the Atlantic County Atlantic County Sheriff's Department has negotiated successfully with the court to provide security. I'm happy to report that the first year of the expense will be carried out and paid for by the county. So that's one cost that's eliminated for this upcoming next year. But thereafter, it will be the responsibility of those communities that are signed up with the court. Unfortunately, we had planned to start January 1 over at the Mays Landing Courthouse, but because of various problems with the contractor on the ventilation system, there's a certain integral part that hasn't come in yet. So right now, the proposed date is somewhere mid-January. In the meantime, communities such as Northfield and Linwood, this particular case will go to Egg Harbor Township and be vetted out there as far as the courts and meeting with the judges. We are still interviewing for several positions, but at this point, everything looks go. I will tell you that I was at the League of Municipalities, and at the one meeting that I attended, that was one of the topics that was brought up by one council representatives from one of the counties here in New Jersey, that they're very much interested. We are going to be the first here in the state of New Jersey come January, and hopefully there will be more counties that will have this joint type of arrangement, but it seems to be catching on within the state. And I have one other letter or thing I would like to read, and Council President has received a copy of this letter. And it is dated today, and it is addressed to the members of Northfield City Council and Northfield residents. I have listened for the past several months to the discussions and comments at our city council meetings and from the residents of our city as to the proposed retail sales of cannabis in Northfield. I commend city council members for taking the time to carefully review this proposal. I feel that it's only fair to the public and to city council to state as to where I stand on this issue. One of my chief concerns is keeping cannabis and illegal drugs from the hands of our children. I feel that the threat of our young children is too great in comparison to the projected sales tax revenue that would be put into the city's general fund through the sales tax on cannabis. Furthermore, I believe that licensing recreational sales would increase the use among minors through an added degree of acceptability. So therefore, if City Council should pass on the final ordinance reading of allowing the sales of cannabis in the city of Northfield, it is my intent to exercise my veto power on this ordinance. Sincerely yours, Erlen Chow. And that is the end of my report, Council President.
Thank you, Mayor. Engineers report.
Thank you, Council President. I don't have much to report, but the New Jersey American Water Company are in the process of updating a lot of water main. They're starting with Snowbird Drive, Shepherd Circle West, that area, west of Route 9, toward Oak. And also they are planning to update the line down in Hempstead. So they're in the process they have some areas, as you know, that there's some area problem with water in certain areas.
Yeah.
So they're working on
Pardon me, Mr. Nassar, they say they cannot hear you on Zoom?
Is that better?
Yes.
Yeah.
So basically, we are going to abandon the existing lines, ground them with concrete, and put new pipes in to eliminate some of the problems we were having with the brown water along the shelter.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Any questions? At this time, we'll open the meeting to the public. Anyone from the public wishing to speak on any topic, we ask you to observe a 5-minute limit per speaker, and please state your name and address. Anyone on
If
Zoom?
anyone from Zoom wishes to speak, just unmute yourself or raise your hand. If you prefer, you can also type in the Zoom chat. Okay, I have Jason who would like to speak. Jason, would you like to type in the Zoom chat, or would you like to use your microphone? There he goes. Okay, so you're going to.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you're going to
Yes.
state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, hi, Jason Yards, 700 Hollywood Drive.
Hang on just a sec, Jason. I'm sorry, could you try that one more time for me, please?
Sure, Jason Yards, 700 Hollywood Drive.
Perfect, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you for allowing me to speak. I've reached out to a few councilmen over the last 2 weeks. We have something that has popped up in my neighborhood, a community sober living facility. I've done a little bit of background work, looking at what this is, and I do understand that this is something that obviously we cannot, let's say, stop or hinder in any way, which I can appreciate what it's for, those that are battling and going through it and hoping to improve their lives. So instead of complaining, let's say that it's there in my neighborhood, my concern and a lot of my neighbors' concern was we went to bed one night with nothing and then woke up with addicts and drunks. So I'm kind of concerned that we never got a heads up that this was popping in the neighborhood, just so we could, be maybe a little more alert, a little more aware of what is now there with the 15 young children that play in our neighborhood and live here. Our, let's say, security in our houses and cars, things that do come along with unfortunate things with these types of facilities. So I guess my question would be alerting the neighbors when something like this is happening. Is that allowed? Right? Is it against the law to tell the neighbors? Because if it's not against the law, then I would ask that the city maybe adopt something or out of the, something that they would like to do, because we're all part of a community, is let us know what's happening. So we kind of know, what's going on in these places, because nobody knew what was happening. A few of my other neighbors did some investigative work, reached out, talked to them, kind of got weird vibes, and then had to call the city to find out what this was all about. And that's kind of how, we came about it. So, I don't know if these things are protected by any kind of rights as far as alerting the neighborhood.
Yeah, Mr. Yard, hi, this is Councilman Palestina. We don't know what regulations we'll have to do some research on that to see if this protected class of citizens if we're able to notify the public.
Okay.
Because they
Fair
are protected under the ADA. So
right.
We'll see about we'll look into that. And again, since they are protected, then notifying people may be considered a discrimination against them as well. So it is unfortunately a tough subject and of course a tough thing to have in your neighborhood. But they are still, we don't get any formal notification either. by the way. They may do some construction work, and we tend to find out when the Division of Community Affairs picks up the paperwork to review the construction. So there's not a process for that again, and that may be because of that criteria, the criteria that they are protected. But going forward, whatever we can do, we can, you know, we can try to work with the public and work with these organizations, but certainly we're bound by whatever rules are in that ADA.
Right, and that is what I figured. You know, obviously the ADA and they are protected and all of that. But I was trying to find, and I couldn't find anything. You know, researching it where there's any kind of HIPAA violations or any of these things that the public can't know about, because, you know, obviously now that the cat's out of the bag, you know, now it spreads like wildfire in the neighborhood.
Right.
So, and the perception, it's not a good one, right? It doesn't start off on a good foot in that regards, you know, when we find out almost like it was a sneaky type of thing. Now, I know you guys don't have anything to do with it, or the city doesn't, but that's where, you know, the heads up kind of makes it a little bit more open and, you know, I guess more inviting, if you will, to the best of what it can be. But so yes, I appreciate if you guys could look into that, because listen, tons of neighborhoods. Sounds like this is something that can just happen. Somebody can buy a piece of property and go through the projects and go through the, you know, the process to get these things done this way. So if we can alert another neighborhood without them finding out the way we found out.
And my old neighborhood on the other side of Northfield, the same situation happened. The house opened up and they were in there, but I can say that there was no negative experiences with that group in a similar situation. So hopefully that's something that, you know, that'll happen here as well.
Yes, we hope so too.
If there is problems, they are still bound by our other codes. So, while we certainly wouldn't want to discriminate because they're trying to get help, but
sure,
they do have to be a good neighbor as well. And
gotcha.
Do all those things.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you. I'll follow back up with you guys just to see what, you know, if it is, if you're allowed to alert us, and then maybe, you know, you guys can discuss a process that once you find out, maybe we give the neighbors a heads up, you know, that it is coming.
Well, yeah, again, we'll see what we can do.
Gotcha.
Thanks.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Any other Zoom continue?
I don't,
Persons?
I do have another comment from Zoom. Okay, so this is Bill Gary from 202 St. James Place, and this comment is addressed to the engineer. My apron is still not repaired. I would like a more definitive date when the repairs will be completed, other than the punch list is being worked on.
I reached out to the contractor 4 weeks ago, and he said they were gonna get a schedule, and I wasn't able to get that from him yet, so I'll reach out to him again tomorrow and get a definite date for fix that thing.
Thank you.
Mr. Gary says he could not hear you. Mr. Gary, what Mr. Nassar said is he reached out to the contractor 4 weeks ago, and he did not get a definite date. He will reach out to the contractor again tomorrow. If you could let me know if you heard that, Mr. Gary, please. Mr. Gary, were you able to hear when I repeated the engineer's comment? Yes. He says, I heard, how about he calls every day until he gets a date? Okay, I don't see anyone else in Zoom who wishes to speak. Oh, wait, I do have someone with their hand up. Oh, that was Mr. Gary, sorry.
Okay.
However, our practice is that we do read the letters that we receive during the work session and the regular session, so I
Okay.
will read Mrs. White's comment again. This is from Karen White, 232 Davis Avenue in Northfield. I respectfully offer the following comment on the issue of the legalization of the sale of marijuana in the city of Northfield. I had hoped to attend the meeting in person. However, when I checked the city website on Monday night, it indicated that no seats were available to appear in public due to COVID limitations. I oppose the legalization of the sale of marijuana in the city of Northfield. I have obtained 31 signatures on a change.org petition opposing the legalization of the sale of marijuana in the city. Most importantly, I am respectfully requesting that this important decision be postponed until January, when the 2 new city council members who were duly elected in the November election are sworn into office. I do not believe that the 2 lame duck members of the present council should be permitted to vote on such an important decision as this. The voters have spoken. The new council should vote on this issue. Thank you all for your time and consideration on this matter. It is appreciated.
Thank you. Still no.
No one else in Zoom?
Seeing no one else wishing to speak, the public session is now closed. On the resolutions, all matters listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine in nature, and having been reviewed by council would be enacted by one motion. Any item may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any council member, and if so removed, will be treated as a separate matter. Any items requiring expenditure are supported by a certificate of availability of funds. The executive session will be held at the end of the meeting, and we'll come back in the public session and make comment for the record after executive session has concluded. Any vote made on subjects discussed will be made in public. Resolutions?
Mr. President, I would like,
Is there anyone who wants anything separately on the resolutions?
I would like to pull 199, I'd like to pull it from the consent agenda, 199, 2021.
Okay. Okay, so you have resolutions, so you'll, any others? All right, we'll discuss that separately. The consent agenda, you have motions?
I'd like to make the motion to adopt resolutions 195-2021 through 198, 2021, and 200, 2021 through 201, 2021 by consent agenda.
Second.
Roll call?
All in favor of voting by consent agenda on resolutions 195 through 198 and 200 and 201 by consent agenda?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Make the necessary motion to adopt the consent agenda for resolutions 195, 2021 through 198, 2021, and 200 through 201, 2021.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Deweese?
Yes.
Mrs. Madden? Mr. Notaro?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Utz? Mr. Palestina?
Yes.
Motion carries for the adoption of the consent agenda.
Resolution 199, discussion?
Yeah, Mr. President, I asked to have this pulled. It's the shared service for dispatch services. We need to renew the agreement with Egg Harbor Township. And I just kind of wanted to discuss this a little bit. The reality is that they have us over a barrel, right? We don't have many options for dispatch services, right? We have an agreement that was negotiated, how many years ago? I'm not even sure. It was before I was
1995 is the first year,
1995.
I believe so.
And the last time it was renegotiated,
2017?
17. So I find, I have issues with the agreement itself. The reality I find is that Egg Harbor Township is taking advantage of us. And we have no recourse at this moment. We don't have anything in place. However, when I when I looked at the budget that EHT has, and I know we received some input from our CFO, I subsequently received some more information regarding what EHT's budget is for dispatch services. And it is approximately 1.957 million, right? That's approximately their budget for dispatch services. Now, Northfield is paying 400 and, I think it was 30-some thousand in the most recent year. The escalator, the increase for next year is 441,797. EHT also has agreements in place to provide dispatch services with Pleasantville, with Linwood, and with Longport. The total amount that they get from those municipalities is in their budget document. It's public record, and it adds up to approximately $1.564 million. Just doing some simple math here and subtraction, EHT expends about $293,000 for dispatch services. We are paying more for dispatch services than EHT is. All right, and so is Pleasantville, so is Linwood. I'm not sure about Longport. I just, I feel like we're getting fleeced here, quite honestly, and I recognize that with a month left in this year with this contract agreement that we don't have options, and I don't anticipate, I mean, we need to have it. However, I know there's an out in the contract, a 6-month out, and I certainly will be looking into other areas to reach out to see what's available out there in terms of dispatch services. I would love for the county to take it on, as they're doing with the courts. But it might be another discussion for the future. I just have a hard time swallowing that we're paying $441,000 in EHT, who makes up a much larger percentage of the call volume, is paying less. And again, I don't necessarily know 100% the numbers, but just my simple math tells me that we're paying more than they are for dispatch services. And I have a problem with that. And I also don't like the fact that we are paying a 3% escalator in this agreement per year. I mean, we don't pay 3% on, in this day and age, I find that unreasonable. I don't think they're raising their salaries 3% each year for dispatch for their employees. Can't verify that, but it's just my suspicion. I just want to say I'll be voting no on this, and it might be a symbolic no, but I want that part of the record as to why I'm doing that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
I'd just like to make a few comments on that myself. Being involved in the original Central Dispatch Committee and the Mayor's Association, and I won't even tell you how many years ago it was. I think Atlantic County is one of the last counties in the state that doesn't have central dispatch. And it's something that is a lot of home rule, a lot of municipalities don't want to go with them, some of the big ones. But the need is there, and it's something that can be done very, very easily. Some of the logistics with the building and other factors, but this is one of the, besides the tax collection, tax assessors, this is one of the bigger ones that some other towns actually go into other counties that are in Atlantic County to use their service. So, but I agree that it's a monopoly, but the orchestrator of this contract was a very good negotiator, and he got his way.
The negotiator on EHT side.
Yep. If you remember, Northfield was one of the originals back in '96, '95 that went into this, and it was sold as that it would cost you $0, but we paid for the capital improvements, we paid for the equipment, we paid for their capital equipments, and you know, this is where it's at, and I agree with you. It's hard to accept, but their service is good, their CAD system is good, and it's gonna be hard. We tried to go with Pleasantville, and their CAD system wouldn't accept the history. You know, I'd like to see them be the lead agency for the whole county and start doing it, but, you know, as far as the facility on the last one was just way out of whack, millions and millions of dollars. It just didn't need to be, you know, but, yeah, it's something that needs to be addressed in the future. I agree.
Yeah, we're calling this a shared service, and this doesn't seem like it's shared when we're paying more than they are.
Well, and as Councilman Perry said, the prior contract, we were paying for equipment. We no longer do that. So those upgrades are in there too. I mean, in small defense of EHT, again, we don't know the exact, every detail and every number.
Well,
And that's something we can look at over the next.
I was quoting the number that they provided, that the administrator for EHT provided as their total cost.
Including capital costs.
I'm-
Okay. Well, we have a month before this contract starts, but then we have 6 months of an out clause if we find something more suitable. Councilwoman Madden?
Is there any alternatives in next month? I know you don't like it, but what other alternative is there?
We really don't have an alternative,
No.
unfortunately, now.
Council President, you may recall, or some of us may recall, that the last contract, we were in the same predicament. At the 12th hour, we were really forced to go into EHT. We had looked at several different municipalities, as pointed out by Councilman Perry, Pleasantville, Galloway, Summers Point, and at that time, we were going into the Pro Phoenix system, or the CAD, and it wasn't compatible with some of these municipalities. I'm not suggesting that we still have an option here, but, maybe we might talk to a couple municipalities that are, maybe we can get in it. I don't know. I don't know at this point in time, but, time is ticking away, and if, Council President, if council wants to move forward in this investigation, a committee needs to be set up through our shared services and start talking to the other communities that might possibly be compatible and be willing to take shared services.
Yes. And as I said, yeah, that's something, since this new contract does have a 6-month out clause, which the prior ones did not, we were locked in for the full term. If we find something that we want to move to, then it's fair that we can opt out at any time.
But right now, we have to go with it.
Right now, we go with this for at least 6 months.
Yes.
Is there confirmation on the other municipalities having the 6-month out clause?
We don't have their contracts, I know
Brian.
of.
Linwood, I know that Linwood does. I don't know about the others.
It seems as though they're standardizing most things there. As far as the processes in this dispatch as well as the contract, I believe, but I don't know that for a fact.
You said they did take Pleasantville on?
Yes.
And who,
Longport.
Linwood
Longport.
and Longport.
Yes.
Any other comments?
All right, I'll make the necessary motion to adopt Resolution 199-2021.
Second. Pondering.
Roll call?
Mr. Deweese?
Yes.
Mrs. Madden?
Yes.
Mr. Notaro?
Yes.
Mr. Smith? Oh,
No.
I'm so sorry. I apologize. Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
No.
Mr. Utz? Mr. Palestino?
Yes.
Motion carries for the adoption of Resolution 199.
Call for a motion to introduce ordinance 12-2021.
Before I make a motion, Council President, I'd like to say a couple of things in regard to some of the things that the residents have said. I understand that after 90 years of prohibition against cannabis, there's a lot of misconception, there's been a lot of propaganda. I was raised in high school being told that marijuana was most reasonable people know that not to be the case. That it's a much less intense and not addictive drug. Psychologically addictive perhaps, but not by the classic term of addiction, but physical withdrawal. The voter test, 70% of the voters said they want legal cannabis. And make no mistake, is what? Legal cannabis is coming to Northfield. It is coming. We may not have the retail shops, but because of delivery, retail cannabis will be for sale in Northfield. The only difference is will there be revenue generated from that? Now, I've seen this council vote for gun sanctuary city. Guns killed more children than anything else in 2018. 39,000 deaths in America through guns last year. Alcohol, same thing. I believe this council, I seem to remember them crowing when alcohol license was approved, that saved the taxpayers from having that tax increase that year. Alcohol also killed over 39,000 people, including 5,000 youths under the age of 21. During Prohibition, of course, alcohol, there was a lot of bootleg alcohol out in the street, as there is with cannabis now, that threatened the health and safety of our residents. A local business person did a back-of-the-napkin calculation where he looked at a micro cannabis business. They're allowed to produce 1,000 pounds of marijuana a year, which is really not a large amount. At current street price of $350 an ounce, that comes out to about $5.5 million in revenue, of which the municipality that hosts that place gets about $120,000. Not one shot, every year going forward. Let's say it's less than that. Let's say it's only $80,000. Bonded over 20 years, there's your new fire truck, without raising taxes to your residents. Our job as city council people is to control costs, provide service, and when the rare opportunity presents itself, other than the 911 service, perhaps we're in the wrong business, that it would behoove the residents, if they want to keep their taxes stable, to take advantage of that revenue source. Now, rentals for commercial spaces are down throughout Atlantic County. It's a trend that's predicted to continue because more and more people are working from home. Amazon is knocking a lot of retail businesses out of the box. So we have a declining commercial rental market out there. Cannabis is not just a revenue source for the town. And again, $120,000, I think is probably at least what Northfield would be. My guess is the first few years would probably be more. Again, reoccurring revenue. It's what all businesses want. But beyond that, it spurs economic development. These vacant storefronts will be filled. And when there's a viable, active economic development in a town, other businesses tend to locate there. So it makes your commercial district more viable. This is a very limited area. Again, legal cannabis is coming to Northfield. It's here. It's going to be coming to people's doors. The only difference is, as council people, do we provide a stable tax revenue for our citizens? Do we support economic development in our town? If it's a moral question, we've already voted for guns. In fact, we didn't just destigmatize them, we glorified them by that resolution. That had no meaning in law or fact. Something that killed, again, more children than anything else in 2018. Alcohol, we approved the license. Everybody was crowing about the one-time revenue shot. And yet, it was just a one-time revenue shot. Alcohol killed 5,000 children under the age of 21 in 2019. So I would ask you to consider what our job here is, council people. Our job, if we have an opportunity to keep our tax base stable, and this may very well prevent us from having to raise taxes for a couple of years, at least, as well as pay for a fire truck. And it doesn't put any children in our school system. It doesn't tax our services anymore. I would say that guns threaten our police more than cannabis, and again, we supported those with the majority. I would urge you to support this ordinance for economic development and for the revenue that will bring our town to help stabilize our tax base. I wouldn't, again, legal cannabis is here. The voters voted for it 70%. And you haven't seen a groundswell of anti-cannabis people. 31 people on a petition, quite frankly. It's not a lot. So with that said, I'd like to make a motion to adopt, well, not to adopt, to introduce ordinance 12-2021 by title only.
Excuse me, I want to make a comment as well. I mean, in light of the mayor's letter, and his reading of his letter, his veto,
It's all, we need 5 votes to override that veto.
we don't have the time in the year to override that. He won't veto it till after the next reading,
Oh, so it requires a,
and then,
I
yeah,
thought 5 votes over.
not till it's a final.
He can't veto it upon introduction. He
Yeah.
vetoes it upon final adoption.
He vetoed on final adoption, which is after our next meeting, which is our final meeting of the year.
So the mayor is against this revenue source, stabilizing taxes.
So that
He's
said-
saying that it would hurt our children, although illegal cannabis, often adulterated, and certainly available to our children. And would continue to support a black market for that, is something that they're against.
I say, you know, we still move forward with our vote, but that's gonna impact it and impact it going forward.
So, again, I'm sorry, Council President, I don't, so if there's 5 votes this time, 5 votes next time, the mayor still has an opportunity.
Well, his veto will be after that vote. And then we won't have an opportunity with this council will not have an opportunity to
We
override.
need a 3rd vote after that,
And then it'll be a different council, and it'll be a different year, which we would have to reintroduce.
I'm sure the residents will be sorry that Eggleston Township not only gets $500,000 from us a year for our 911 service, but will reap millions of dollars in revenue, and the cannabis will still be delivered to your door in Northfield.
Well, this is
I think
carried.
we're excited.
That's it, this is carried on, or you introduced the ordinance 8 to prohibit it after ordinance 7 was introduced.
Yes.
This has been going on for 6 months, and, like I say, it is a great disservice to the city.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't even have the legislature
Oh, come on.
issue anything until August. We didn't,
And
listen, we're not gonna vote,
Dragging on.
And we were assured.
and their laws are still temporary. To be honest, that's,
Ordinance 7 back on the agenda, I was told we have plenty of time still
right.
left in the year to
Exactly.
get this vote through.
well, we had time to do it, but now we,
Apparently we don't.
well, that's a new,
Still requiring a 3rd vote.
well, I got the letter dated today, so.
Tom, if you don't mind, I'd like to say something. You know, I did some research on my own as well. I polled several of our constituents in town, and I've come up with, it's about a 50-50 split, and that's our residents. There's some that are really, really against it, and I'm telling you, it's a dead even with people that are saying, okay, it's here anyway. What you're saying, everything makes sense. I hear you. But like, the way I look at this is, we have to listen to both sides of the coin. And you can't just take one side or the other when it's so split. You know, I would suggest maybe to you, if in the future you want to put it on and let the voters decide in the future, and then eventually down the road, this could, no, our voters, our
That's an
voters.
expensive proposition, but let me ask you a question.
I don't think it's all that expensive, but.
When you poll these voters, did you tell them if this could prevent you from having a tax increase for the next 4 years, would you support it?
We had
That's not
a
guaranteed.
very good discussion I had that discussion, pros and cons with all these voters, yes.
Well, the
And there's a
biggest-
lot of people that are just dead set against it.
The biggest complaint I hear when knocking on doors is, what can you do about my taxes?
Exactly.
Well, here is something you can do about the taxes.
Well-
But that's okay. Listen, I knew this was a possibility. You know, Council Terry always said it was Lucy in the football, that this would be pulled out at the last minute.
Exactly.
And, you know, his prediction has come to pass. But again,
He's been doing this a long time.
I hope the residents of Northfield remember, as their tax bill goes up a penny here and a penny there for 100,
6 cents or
that
8
this
cents.
could prevent it. And I will be sure to report some of those Egg Harbor Township numbers to you as they come.
And to your point that it was dragged out, Councilman Madden, it wasn't dragged out. This is certainly one topic where we could have as much discussion as possible. This is one of the most important topics we've discussed. And it wasn't dragged out. It was,
And this can go up one day before, the next day against it, then before, and then against it. So you're.
I'm listening to the
you're kinda-
voters.
You kind of go with the way.
No, not really. I think you gotta go with the win.
We've seen that.
All right.
But, no, I'm
Council
not.
President, oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, Councilman, Lee, yes, Mayor.
First of all, I do appreciate your comments, Councilor Nuts and Councilwoman Blumenauer. You know, this is definitely a hard issue, and I've spent time, and I've kept my opinions to myself throughout the months in discussion, because I felt that this was the opportunity for city council and the public to make known of their position. I didn't want to influence or say anything whatsoever. Yes, 70% throughout Northfield, as well as through the state, voted to legalize cannabis. But for my research and discussion, that 70% only was for the legalization. They didn't say that they wanted to have retail sales in Northfield. Now, I may be wrong, but I will tell you this, that, and I've only had maybe about 30 or 40 people from residents from Northfield who have commented or made statements to me that they are not in favor of retail sales in Northfield, let alone on Shore Road, New Road. Some people had offered to have the sales or suggested somewhere else. But as all of us know, there are restrictions such as if there's the presence of food distribution or alcohol, that would restrict where these retail sales could occur. Having said that, you know, it's a hard decision. But, you know, I'm doing this in my conscience, and from what I've heard from the 40 or 50 people that have commented to me, tonight, the reason why I brought forth, and Councilman Perry had pointed out at our last city council meeting, that if this is going to be a futile vote, you know, why go forward if we know what the reality is and spend taxpayer money to publicize and go through the motions itself? Again, you know, this is my opinion. I wanted to be upfront with everyone. I truly respect everyone's comments and opinions here. It's just one of those issues where some people like vanilla ice cream and some people like chocolate ice cream. So that is my comments and my rationale at this point as far as my intent, if this goes forward to the third reading, to veto.
Mr. President,
Yes, Councilman Perry.
it would be introduced tonight, passed at the second meeting. The third reading would have to be signed off by the mayor and vetoed. Can you clarify why the time frame is a problem? If he vetoes it, why doesn't it go into the next session the next year and be overridden?
We don't have another meeting this year to vote.
So
To override.
that doesn't carry over, the override doesn't carry over into 22?
It does.
Oh, it does? Mary, could you clarify that?
Yeah, I'm confused.
I believe the process is that the mayor can exercise his right to veto power under our form of government when the clerk formally presents the ordinance to him for signature. He has to, then, I believe he has 5 days, or maybe he has 10, I forget.
20.
10,
10.
to return to me his written objection, his written veto. I believe what Council President Palestina is saying, that the council that will consider the option to overturn that veto will not be the 7 people that are in this room. It will be the people that are sworn in as of January 1st. And I believe the assumption is that 5 of the 7 will not vote to overturn the veto. Therefore, it would fail. The mayor's veto would be upheld. Did I say that correctly?
I believe it is.
I'd
Yes.
like to know what the vote is tonight on who's for it and who's against it.
Well,
That's my
there's a
opinion.
motion on the floor.
Well,
There
we're
is no
gonna vote.
second. Once there's a second, there will be a vote.
Thank you.
Motion's on the table?
There is a motion, no second.
Need a second?
Roll call.
Mr. Deweese,
No.
Mrs. Madden,
Yes.
Mr. Notaro,
No.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
No.
Mr. Utz?
Yes.
Mr. Palestina?
No.
That is 4, negative, 3 in the affirmative. The motion to introduce ordinance 12 fails.
Thank you.
Payment of the bills.
Excuse me, Mr. Posey, if you don't mind, I'm going to leave, I'm going to go out of town, so tomorrow morning, and, I have
Okay, payment of the bills.
I'd like to make the necessary motion for the payment of bills of $78,687.29.
Second.
That's wonderful. Have a good one, Barbara.
Roll call?
Mr. Deweese?
Yes.
Mrs. Madden? Mr. Notaro?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Utz?
Yes.
Mr. Palestina?
Yes.
Motion carries for payment of bills.
Our next city council meeting will be December 14th, 6 PM work session, with the regular session immediately following. The executive session?
Yes, I have to read something. Just a moment, please.
Okay.
For the members participating via Zoom, in a moment, the council will be moving into executive session. When that occurs, I will be pausing the audio and video. The council will remain in council chambers for the duration of the closed session. When it concludes, the public session will resume. The audio and video will be reactivated, and a statement will be made by the solicitor for the record. So, Resolution 201, which was just adopted as part of the consent agenda, is a resolution providing for an executive session not open to the public in accordance with the provisions of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, which is NJSA 10:4-12B4. In this case regarding contract negotiations between the City of Northfield and the Northfield Professional Firefighters Association, Local 2364. We are required to set forth as much information as possible as to the matter to be discussed, as well as provide for them the amount of time they can expect to elapse before the non-public minutes can be disclosed. And for that, I will defer to the solicitor for comment.
Thank you. As authorized by Resolution 201-2021, at this time, the City Council for the City of Northfield will enter into an executive session not open to the general public in accordance with the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act. Matters to be discussed are the status of contractual negotiations between the City of Northfield and the Northfield Professional Firefighters Association, the Local 2364. Council will be hearing an update from Labor Council, which is subject to the attorney-client privilege and confidentiality. We will keep minutes of this executive session as required by law, which will be approved by the council and made promptly available for public inspection when required and permitted by law. At this time, the time frame for the release of those minutes is unknown. Official action may be taken after the executive session.
Mr. Nassar, we will not be needing you. Thank you. Chief Newman, adios.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
For those members of the
Yep, you
public
too.
who would like to stay, you would just need
Have
to
a happy
excuse
Thanksgiving.
yourselves to the lobby, and you can return when the public session resumes. Happy Thanksgiving. Mr. Facenda.
Yes, the council for the City of Northfield has concluded its executive session authorized by Resolution 201-2021. Matters discussed were the status of contractual negotiations between the City of Northfield and Local 2364. Matters discussed were attorney-client privileged and confidential and will remain that way. Council did keep minutes of the executive session as required by law. Those minutes will be available for public inspection when permitted. No official action will be taken on this issue tonight, and the minutes will be released when permitted.
Good job. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, please.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Have a nice holiday, all.
Yes, thank you.
Enjoy it.
See you, Frank.
Right, happy holidays.
Happy Thanksgiving.